Since its inception in 2015, Thunderbirds Are Go has inspired and enthralled children and adults in the 21st century, with its ingenious filming techniques and high concept storylines that make it stand apart from other children's British television series of its era. The program has enjoyed a global audience and has released a huge wave of merchandise, especially with toys and models. Whilst the series is aimed specifically at children and to those who have a great interest in science and technology, Thunderbirds Are Go continues to be widely shown on various television channels and streaming platforms. Thunderbirds Are Go is an overall faithful remake to the original series, which captures the spirit and essence of Thunderbirds effectively, thanks to the care and love the cast and crew have to the series, which shine through in their work. Whilst the remake is not a perfect revival, Thunderbirds Are Go remains the best revival of Thunderbirds as a series or feature film franchise in continuing the adventures of international rescue, with the exception of Thunderbirds 1965. Thunderbirds Are Go is considered as the official remake of the series, adapting the program to modernize it for a new audience while remaining faithful to the Gerry Anderson legacy. I will always consider the classic Thunderbirds alongside Captain Scarlet as Gerry Anderson's finest television programs. As a fan who grew up with the SUPERMARIONATION series, my verdict of the series will always be of that from the classic Thunderbirds. The return of Thunderbirds to television would have excited any fan of the Gerry Anderson catalogue. The early announcements of such well respected actors appearing in the series, including David Graham returning to play Parker, members and associates of the production teams, and early trailers and artwork, I was assured this was going to be a respectful 21st century version of the series. This remake was to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the original series, and I was very much aware of how much attention and care the production team had reflected in their work to their details and references to not only the original series, but beyond to the wider works of Gerry Anderson. I can remember thinking why Brains was now Indian and felt that Parker, although still voiced by David Graham, was not quite the same lovable rogue as he was in the classic series. Max was nonetheless a cool addition to the cast, but the less said about Lady Penelope's dog Sherbet, the better. Seriously though, why would Lady P have a pug? Rosamund Pike was a superb choice for Lady P, and he does a great job in capturing the elegance, charm, and deadly danger of Penelope.
The characters were younger, making this universe we are presented with separate to that of the Supermarionation series.
I admired the inclusion of Ko and her dynamic within the series, and was intrigued by the absence of Jeff Tracy and how this would play out into the program's narrative. Scott remained my favourite character, and I felt that sometimes the Tracy brothers, being much younger, at times acted rather silly compared to their original counterparts. This is I felt when the remake, aimed strictly at a younger audience, failed in reaching to a wider audience. Had there I felt been an older audience reached through with different and more family orientated story techniques, I felt the series would have been even better. But more on that later. Perhaps, instead of creating stories based off the original series, which was clearly done to show the love and care the creatives have for the program, the writers could perhaps have taken inspiration from other events and disasters that the writers did in the original series, whilst they took lots of inspiration from real science to provide an updated version of the series. The possibilities are endless for the writers to make stories that underline serious themes about science and technology. This was a problem that plagued Thunderbirds Are Go by placing too much of a reliance for source material from the Supermarionation era. The series would have stood up better with stronger scripts by having entirely new episodes to provide more memorable stories. Ben and Nick Foster's music is a joy to listen to, and attempts to capture the spirit of the Barry Gray scores whilst updating the sound to a more contemporary audience. Perhaps a few extra tracks composed for the ITC Gerry Anderson catalogue would have been nice to have heard of throughout to help make the series feel even closer to that of the original, providing the rights could have been secured to use them from the Barry Gray archive. Thunderbird 1 remained my favourite craft within the series. The gear and technology employed by this international rescue was far more advanced and complex seen in the original series, reflecting the closer predictions we have towards the 2060s than the 1960s would have done. Thunderbird 5 in particular is put to particular great use in Tag, as is John, both of which often can be neglected in the original series in favour of Thunderbirds 1 and 2, featuring mostly in the series. Whilst the inclusion of EOS aboard Thunderbird 5, an artificial intelligence, may seem dated by today, the added element of company alongside John helped to flesh out this 21st century version of John and his significance to the Tracy family. Several variants of Thunderbirds I disliked. The wings rotating on Thunderbird 1, no longer using radio communicators for holographic images, surfs up aboard Thunderbird 3, hoverjets and the mobile control unit, automatically flying crafts. Like, why would you man them in the first place? Everything now from the palm tree to the swimming pool now felt too mechanized. Thunderbird 2 no longer had specific vehicles, but vehicles combined to form craft specific to the rescue. Seriously though, the Mole and the Firefly were no match to the original series' crafts. There were no more side-on shots of Thunderbirds or replayed stock footage I always loved seeing. The new series always showed the entire launch sequences of the Thunderbirds, and I have to admit that the countdown by Jeff Tracy was a stroke of genius. However, this modernization of the science and technology presented in the remake I do respect and understand the motivations behind. In the world of Tag, international rescue act under guidance of the GDF rather than as vigilantes. There is now no need to worry about having the secrets of IR foiled by the Hood with a photograph either anymore. Speaking of the Hood, his character is fleshed out greater than the 1960s Hood would have been. These new developments form the major story arc seen throughout the remake. The series being shot with models and backgrounds first in New Zealand, followed by completing the CGI for the vehicles and characters that were treated later, gives a feeling that the series was made in some ways like the original. Whilst the CGI may look wooden at times, and may compare poorly by some with the motion capture technology employed on the new Captain Scarlet, the characters are presented marionette-like, with limited facial expressions. Thunderbirds Are Go was an internationally produced series, and was a very expensive and visually attractive series for its time. Whilst writing for the series took place in America, supervised by head writer Rob Hoge, and voice work provided in London, the model units were provided in New Zealand by Pokiko Pictures and Weta Workshop. CGI work took place in China. Ring of Fire Parts 1 and 2 as stories, shown as a feature-length special in April 2015, stands as a pretty solid start to the series. Ring of Fire effectively introduces the series' premise and characters, and was clearly inspired from various mediums of 1960s Thunderbirds. This helped pay homage to longtime fans and reflected the makers' love to the series. From the feature-length showing, I thought the series would be hour-long programs, including the adverts, but each episode turned out to be 22 minutes long. This is where I felt the short runtime hindered the series by meaning that the writers had a mere 20 minutes to tell an effective story. Far too little, I felt. Had the series been longer, it would have benefited again from telling stronger storylines, much like the hour-long extension of the original series by Lou Grade, which significantly boosted the success of the original series. Concluding these 13 episodes, I still felt a little uneasy of the new makeover of the first series, and it would not be until the next one of stories that would win me over as a Thunderbirds remake, which I felt were better than the first installments of the series. Overall, I felt the series captured the spirit of the original series, but not the magic, and I enjoyed the first run of episodes. The essence of the series, its themes and characters are nonetheless replicated, bringing Thunderbirds a new and modernized identity successfully into the 21st century. I felt that it was during the second run of the first series where I felt that the remake was for me. Series 1 of Thunderbirds Are Go recommenced in October 2015, hot off the huge wave of popularity the series oversaw with regular ITV screenings and a large range of merchandise dedicated to the series, some of which is now very highly prized memorabilia, as all Gerry Anderson merchandise quickly becomes. The Thunderbirds franchise had celebrated its 50th anniversary the previous month. These stories were a stronger run of episodes. Relic, a story seeing the Tracy brothers rescue Jeff Tracy's old friend Captain Lee Taylor from an asteroid storm hitting the lunar surface. making Scott the leader of the Tracy family, the eldest and authority of the same family, who meets Jeff's old friend is put to good use as Captain Taylor knows Jeff well. It makes Scott the next suitable candidate to take Taylor safely to Earth. Taylor is not only a recurring character throughout the series, making his debut here, but provides some great context behind Jeff's pioneering days in space travel. Chain of Command saw an enigmatic GDF superior ground international rescue operations, rendering them powerless. We see him and Scott clash regarding the role of international rescue among rescue disasters, as we see the GDF spy attempt to gain access to international rescue secrets for his ulterior motives. In Touch and Go, KO takes matters into her own hands and believes that international rescue should become more than just a rescue organization. Her role among international rescue is revealed to the Tracy brothers in Legacy, the finale of the first series, which ties up the program's story threads effectively when we see all the Thunderbirds in action when the Hood has invaded Tracy Island. Thanks to KO, who is able to see through her uncle's plot, the Thunderbirds unite to trap the Hood on Tracy Island in an epic rescue which sees the Hood finally captured by the GDF. At first, the Tracys are shocked to learn of KO's revelations, but she still remains an integral part of the family. Thunderbirds Are Go had proven to be a major international success, and more seasons were soon in the works. When the series did return in October 2016, the quality of the series reached its peak, with Thunderbirds Are Go's strongest episodes. We are introduced to the series' best newly introduced villain, the Mechanic. Incredibly muscular and possessing a deep voice, his strength is matched in his wit and technical power of his machinery. International Rescue and the Mechanic went head to head in the climactic Up from the Depths two-parter. This episode's excellent musical score helped to create a cinematic and epic feel to this story, where we are revealed to a prototype Thunderbird titled TV-21, the name for Gerry Anderson's record-breaking comic strip that ran during the 1960s. Other exciting Easter eggs presented include seeing hats being used from the uniforms of the original series, and we are treated to lots of exciting visual effect sequences, such as the mechanic trying to take the TV-21. The second bulk of this season opened with the first official Thunderbirds Day in 2017, with an exclusive cinema screening of Volcano and Power Play, alongside an episode of Thunderbirds 1965. Attack of the Reptiles was another clear example of a story which borrowed elements from the original series and was adapted for the new era. Much like Attack of the Alligators, the production team used real specimens to convey the reality of giant creatures. Inferno is arguably the most controversial story of Thunderbirds Are Go. The episode was inspired from the original series story City of Fire, where the tallest building in London catches fire, and Virgil and Alan, Thunderbird 2, rescue the trapped people inside the fiery building. The episode was due to be transmitted in November 2017, only months after the events of the Grenfell Tower disaster. As a result of this episode being too similar to the disaster, Inferno was postponed from ITV transmissions in the UK, but was made available on Amazon Prime and was available to watch elsewhere across the world. As a result, the DVD release of this season removed Inferno from the run of episodes, much to the discontent of fans. The story was then eventually released on the Series 3 Part 2 DVD set in 2020 as a bonus episode, and then became available to see from ITV on streaming services and on TV transmissions. Series 3 was an ultimately less effective season than the previous two. The series saw the introduction of more new villains who served as Series 3's main villains, the Chaos Crew. The Chaos Crew are represented as these hugely powerful and dangerous characters, but they never come off as terribly threatening, in any way the Hood, the Mechanic, or the Mysterons ever came off. Fuse and Havoc are simple one-dimensional characters who are simple troublemakers and simply act off the Hood orders for the needs of the plot with no menace. Whilst we would see some character development between Fuse and Havoc, it is hardly a majorly interesting arc and hardly anything original. The quality of Series 3 produced some of the worst entries not only in Thunderbirds Are Go, but I'd also say the entire Gerry Anderson canon. Episodes are basic plots that are unengaging and fail to capture what made the classic Thunderbirds so effective. Even some of the strongest episodes of this batch are filled with problems with the plot, suggesting the creative writing team were wearing thin on incisive ideas. The opening two-parter, Chaos, introduced us to the Chaos crew and their abilities, much of which was never explored or used much throughout the rest of the series. The use of atomic machines doing international rescue assignments was a strong concept, but the pace of the story is slow and becomes, quite frankly, unengaging to watch, which is the worst thing Thunderbirds can be. This is not too much of a problem with Chaos, but gradually becomes a major issue with this series. Thunderbirds should never be boring. It is an all-action adventure series with constant excitement that always has thrilled and entertained. Path of Destruction, unoriginally taking the title of the 1966 TV episode, took the bare bones of the story and stretched it out painfully across 22 minutes. Now that references to the original series was done so much, the impact of referencing them was now stale and far less effective in delivering the same punch that they did when Thunderbirds Are Go first started airing. The major problem with Path of Destruction is that the plot is simply too one-dimensional for the runtime. Dangers are constantly thrown about with little substance, adding to the progression of the story, making this episode feel like threat after threat after threat. The original Thunderbirds, in spite of the extended hour runtime, never had this problem, as narratives were intertwined very effectively. This is an issue that also occurs in later tag episodes. Night and Day as well feels like most of the episode drags out as a mining crawler attempts to move away a few inches from the sun's rays, leading to another tedious story with little substance and a simple countdown. Rally Raid was dedicated to the passing of Sylvia Anderson with an image of Penelope, which had been dedicated to Great Aunt Sylvia from her Series 1 appearance in Designated Driver. Once again, this episode fails to capture the magic and essence of Thunderbirds by taking a subplot from Moving or Dead, which was inserted to aid in the extension of the episode from a 25-minute to a 50-minute episode, and turning that into an episode itself. Seeing Lady Penelope racing against other racing drivers in a desert, for which the Chaos crew become involved, delivers one of the weakest episodes of Tag. Seriously, just because a racing pre-featured as a subplot from episode extended to double in the runtime doesn't mean it makes for a good episode on its own. Series 3 came to an unexpected end without warning with the 9th episode, which would be the last episode of the first part of this season. No official announcement was made of this, nor was there any announcement for when any more episodes were to come. I expected that there would be the normal run of 13 episodes than simply a batch of 9 episodes. The decision to split the series over 3 batches has never been made clear, but the little publicity the series was now receiving made me consider the future of the series even further, and as would turn out, this would be the last season ordered. Another issue was meant that the series ended and started with filler episodes rather than Series three's intended two-parters. That meant that Series 3 opened and closed on weaker episodes, which is never a good idea for broadcasters, as this leaves an unfulfilled taste in the opinions of viewers. After a period of silence, Series 3 Part 2 finally began with little announcement in May 2019. Endgame, released approximately at the same time as the Marvel film, is for me the worst episode not only of the new Thunderbirds, but the entire Gerry Anderson canon. The episode was terrible on every level. The Chaos Crew made yet another appearance at a Cavern Quest, a futuristic holographic game park where they plan to steal a powerful piece of holographic technology, the Holotrix. Their meddlesome antics cause the park to collapse, forcing international rescue to investigate. KO joins forces with the wizard of the park, Azithrill, to stop the Chaos Crew where they combat holographic monsters. It's a bad concept for the series, which was badly written, badly directed, and badly shot. Seeing KO fighting with swords, tangling with holographic monsters, made the series turn into a completely different program. What happened to international rescue, saving lives in danger, using advanced technology? What about disaster scenes, international rescue saving the day? Now, I do enjoy episodes that do sometimes break from the norm and delve into the experimental route. This I'm fine with, if it provides the same levels of quality as per the other episodes. Even when I first saw this episode back in 2019, I thought to myself, what is this? This is terrible. I grew up on Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Stingray, and seeing this was awful. Like, Thunderbirds being Game of Thrones? Ugh. The next two-parter, intended to be the story before season break, was SOS. Part 1 was another lackluster effort from the so-called writers, seeing Gordon borrow Thunderbird 1 to look for Sherbert who had gone missing. Seriously, the only saving grace for this episode was the return of Brayman, which provided an invaluable asset for the Tracys in the next episode. Part 2 was a much stronger episode, with a very emotional scene of the Tracys rushing to rescue Gordon after he suffered major injuries in Thunderbird 4, one of the best moments the series has to offer. As the Chaos Crew escape, the Tracys discover a signal emanating from deep space that seems to come from Jeff Tracy, implying that the long assumed dead Jeff Tracy is in fact alive. The intended opening two-parter for the final batch of the season, Signals, came immediately after. The story opens with the crucial scene of seeing Jeff Tracy's last moments before his apparent death. Moments from this scene that shape the foundation of the premise of the revived ITV Thunderbirds. Lee Majors was excellent casting for Jeff Tracy, famous for his role as the $6 million man. However, following the previous two-parter, the Tracys are encouraged to search for new evidence to find whether Jeff is in fact alive. Whilst the recovery of new footage showing that Jeff is probably alive, the most underwhelming part had to be the tedious chase for Thunderbird 3, which was stolen by the Chaos Crew. Nothing that was particularly memorable about that space sequence. Chain Reaction, Getaway, and Avalanche were all limp and inspired episodes, and while the remaining episodes of Series 3 were at least slightly better in terms of their quality. In Firebreak, the crab logger returned to the series, but in a diminished format. I was hoping, as in traditional Thunderbird spirit, to see a crab logger go dangerously out of control, bust through walls and trees uncontrollably, causing explosions and disastrous consequences. An international rescue had to put a stop to it as in the original and thoroughly excellent Path of Destruction from 1966. As such, this was not to be, and I was disappointed once again that all it was used for was to get our people needed to be rescued out of a spot of bother. It could have been any old machine in the episode, rather than the crab logger. With the vast and exciting preparations made for the new launch of the Zero XL, we are given an excellent Part 1 featuring the countdown of the rocket and build-up of the takeoff. One can definitely feel a great sense of urgency and excitement, which had not been felt within the series for a long time. The episode never tires of thrills and dangers. Even when the Chaos Crew begin their attack on Tracy Island, little do International Rescue know that the Hood is aboard the Zero XL with them, attempting to ensure Jeff never comes back to Earth. Part 1 truly feels this is the finale the series has been leading up to for 5 years over many episodes. The Tracys find Jeff and Time in an emotional moment where the boys are reunited with their father. At the very end of the episode, we are presented with perhaps the best cliffhanger in all the Gerry Anderson canon, even if there weren't many two-parters across as many shows, with the revealment of Jeff Tracy on screen alongside Scott. Part 1 was a perfect episode. Part 2 is unfortunately a much weaker episode, as it struggles to maintain the trepidation and climactic escalation of the first part. While there is little tension left to fill in this episode, the Chaos Crew make a feeble attack on Tracy Island. Fuse is stopped by Grandma Tracy, literally giving him a big telling off, fulfilling a weak arc in his character of his humanity which started in Chain Reaction. The emotion is high for this episode, but the action remains unfulfilling. Jeff Tracy is reunited back home, the Hood and the Chaos Crew serve the justice they deserve, Alan is graduated, and Jeff is back running international rescue. Seeing Jeff back at the helm of the Tracy family offered a satisfying end to the series. ITV only commissioned 3 seasons of Thunderbirds Are Go, but had the programme gone beyond 2020, I've laid out my thoughts and ideas as to where Thunderbirds Are Go would have gone into Series 4 and further, now that Jeff has taken control back of International Rescue.
How will Jeff be meeting his old friends again, such as Captain Taylor? Would we have seen entirely new types of rescue scenarios? Or learn more about where Jeff was trapped in outer space? And how would Scott have handled now that his father is back running international rescue? Since he had been leading the family for a long time, would he have clashed with Jeff about making decisions and leading operations? And how will the family dynamic now play out between the brothers and their father? Overall, looking back over the series, Thunderbirds Are Go was a good remake of the original Thunderbirds. It was not a perfect one. The series had been the most successful reboot of the 1960s series. Fans can now be rather dismissive of the remake since it ended in 2020, but at least helped bring some new viewers into the world of Gerry Anderson. Whilst the reboot was not such a resurgence of Thunderbirds as experienced in the 1990s or early 2000s, the series would have succeeded better from aiming to a family audience than strictly that of a children's one. Thus, the storylines would have been stronger and more sophisticated, much in the same way the new Captain Scarlet was. Due to the stronger storylines and more intelligent writing, I believe that new Captain Scarlet was a stronger remake than that of Thunderbirds Are Go. Although not a series overseen by Gerry Anderson, the series did exceptionally well at honouring the original programme. I've heard rumours swirl about that ITV were not interested in making a Thunderbirds remake if Anderson was still alive, perhaps due to his age and declining health, or creative involvement he would have had in the series. After the new Captain Scarlet was regarded as a failure by ITV, the broadcasters maybe weren't interested in backing Anderson on another series, but would back a remake series without his involvement. However much impact Anderson had in leading to the creation of Thunderbirds Are Go remains unclear. He had discussing remaking Thunderbirds using CGI characters alongside models and had been planning for a remake back in the 2000s. If Anderson was still alive to watch the new Thunderbirds, I hope he'd be proud of the achievement that was made in this remake.